It is my pleasure to introduce Andrew Hargens, Chief Development Officer of Massport, the Massachusetts Port Authority, the operator of the Fish Pier, along with representatives of companies based on the pier, including Max Harvey, Vice President and co-owner of Wulf's Fish, Jared Auerbach, founder of Red's Best, and Chris Avery, co-founder of the Boston Smoked Fish Company. We're going to start tonight with a 3-minute film that was created last year, in a very different year, to give you an overview of the pier, and then we'll follow with questions and conversation. And as Alice mentioned, you can add your questions to the Q&A at any time, and we encourage you to do so. So let's jump right in. Oops. And let's jump right in with the starting slide. That'll be more fun. There we go.
The Fish Pier is the heart of the center of the universe for seafood. And it's an icon for the fishermen and the fish processors in the area.
The Fish Pier has been centrally located in easy access to the Boston Logan Airport for us to receive and export fish. And it's also been the hub of New England, gathering the different ports, being Boston in the middle of it.
That impact of having everything together, all those pieces, the airport, Conley, and the Fish Pier, makes it vital for us to be here.
The pier turned 100 years old in 2014. It's really the last bastion of the history of Boston in this area.
So I am actually the third generation. My grandfather was a fisherman. My dad was a fisherman and a boat owner. And I was the first generation to switch over on the other side of the industry and wholesale distribute seafood. So I'm continuing that family tradition.
We have about 146 employees. We talk about generations. We have people that work for us that fathers, sons, cousins, nephews. So this family generation is not just with us. It started with my great-grandfather coming over from Italy. He started the whole generational seafood business for our family.
I love what I do. When I come into work in the morning, the sun's just rising, or it's pitch black, and a couple hours into it, see the sunrise, and it's just a nice feeling. You feel like you're at home. The challenge is being able to supply, whether it's the restaurant or the end user, with a product that may not be available all the time. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on.
Every day is challenging. That's why it's fun. This is a hard industry, a really hard industry. You see how hard these men and women work. We've built an organization, a group of people who like the challenge.
If you look down the pier, there are small individual outlets, and each outlet specializes in something different. It's convenient. The boats unload here. I can see what's coming in. I can see the product. I know everyone down here, and I can go from shop to shop and pick the best for my customers.
We started in 2009 looking for ingredients that we could use, working with local suppliers, and we decided to approach fish suppliers. So I walked into a seafood processor that's local to Boston, asked them what they might have that doesn't have a place in the human market, and found out they cut lots of cod. So we started buying skins from them. And that was really the introduction for us, making seafood treats for dogs.
The name of our restaurant's The Daily Catch, so we literally try to buy the daily catch. The black squid ink pasta is definitely the most popular dish. That's homemade pasta that's made with fresh, clean squid that we buy locally off the Fish Pier. And there it is. The black pasta, aglio olio.
So let's just take first thing in the morning. Customer calls up and the chef wants 4 or 5 items that come from the New England area. A boat comes in, let's say 8 o'clock in the morning, starts offloading. We're 7 minutes to the airport. We put it on the first flight, served that night for dinner. You can't get much fresher than that.
Awesome. Yeah, just such a fun view of all the crazy activity that takes place on the pier. So one of the comments from that film that strikes me is the pier is the last bastion of the history of Boston in this area. And Andrew, can you help us put the activities of the Fish Pier in context and kind of tell us how Massport is working hand in hand with the commercial seafood industry to plan for its evolving needs? And I think you may be on mute still.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for leading with that video. It turned out so well when we put that together a year ago, and was a perfect intro to this session. So, you know, I think the Fish Pier, obviously 100 years old, it presents sort of an opportunity and a challenge, right? It's not ideal for the trucking based business that much of the seafood industry is today, but it provides a smaller scale space that is really ideally suited to small to medium-sized businesses in the market. So one thing that we've tried to do over the past 8 to 10 years is working with a variety of tenants, a couple of guys on the meeting here today, Chris and Jared, and then Wulf's as well, to really incentivize investment in refurbishing the processing space, bringing it up to a modern HACCP standard so that it can function efficiently for the different types of businesses that we have. As you saw in that video, there's a number of different types of activities that happen, different business types that all complement each other on the pier. I mean, now I'm very proud of the mix of tenants that we have on the pier today. It's a lot more diverse than it was in the past. We've got, you know, obviously Tori bringing a lot of product off the boats. And then we have people processing a variety of fish. We have value-added operations like Chris operates at Smoked Fish and Deb over at Polka Dog. And then we've got folks like Maine Coast that really have their plant up in Maine, but wanted to have a front door here in Boston and really relish the opportunity to do that. So I think that mix of tenants has made for a much healthier dynamic on the pier. I think it's allowed still there's competition throughout the area, as you know, Max was commenting earlier, but I think it's a healthy competition, and it's also a lot of support and compatibility. I think it was great on the video. Chris Basili, who's a customer of many of these guys, said, you know, the one-stop shop opportunity in Boston is huge. He can come down and buy from a number of folks all within a quarter of a mile of each other, and I think that remains a huge draw. The last thing I would say is, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but we're trying to create an opportunity for folks that want to expand at the Massport Marine Terminal, like the recent Boston Sword and Tuna project, to do that in a modern space that is better suited to large trucking operations. And I think in total, the proximity to the airport and the increased role of Conley bringing in frozen seafood have all sort of created the supports to the cluster that are helping it grow today.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think people don't always think about the fact that the seafood industry isn't just fish, fishermen, boats, but really the entire infrastructure of the harbor. And so the proximity to the airport increasingly, you know, and especially in the respect that this is a global industry, is so important that fish can literally get on and off planes to and from the Fish Pier, you know, in very short order. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'll comment generally. These guys, you know, in the business know way more about it than I do, but I think the global nature of the industry, the sort of high value seafood product has really made, you know, ironically, the airport the draw that wants, you know, these businesses want to be near. I think of the airport, Conley, and the interstate highway system, and those essential truck routes that allow these businesses to move the product all around are key. And those are the things that, you know, as you know, landlord and you know, Massport being involved in sort of policy setting and planning for the area, we try to protect those connections, you know, critically, because they're essential to these guys to be able to move their product. You know, you're seeing some slides here in the background. this one shows just a roster of the mix of tenants that we have today. And like I said, it's quite diverse. And we've had, through leasing strategies and partnerships with a number of the folks, we've, they continue to make investments in the property, which, I would say about, 8 or 10 years ago, half the first 2 floors on the pier were vacant. And today we're 100% leased, and, frankly, have folks calling to inquire about additional space on the pier all the time. So quite a turnaround, due in large part to, the enthusiasm and hard work of the business owners. This map in the background here just shows our master plan for the build out of the Massport Marine Terminal. It's a 40-acre property. We've set aside a little more than half of it for modern seafood facilities that would really strengthen the seafood cluster in Boston. Boston Sword being one of the first legal seafoods, and eight seafood ware out there already. Future projects include a new facility for Stavis, FJ O'Hara, Pangea, and Aquanor are all in the works. I think, again, just great progress there. Most people don't know it, but, Boston is one of 4 major hubs in the country where seafood processing is happening. I'll just say in closing, when I talk to people, just friends and family, they're like, well, everything I read, the seafood industry is, struggling. There are catch limits. There's nothing going on. I always feel like there's a huge amount of education that's coming on all of us to do. This session is a great way to do it. But, I think Massport's tried through social media and other levers that we have to spread the word about the strength of these industries, the growth that's happening, the blue collar jobs that the industry supports, and just the terrific food source that's right here in our midst. So, we're very excited about it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing about the relationship between the Fish Pier and in this area of the Massport Marine Terminal is that you've really created space for these and other companies to continue to grow and to kind of even more robustly build out this very interesting sector that is and cluster that is really evolving here. And Max, that kind of brings me to you. One, you've played some different roles within the seafood industry. And then Wulf was a company that was started in 1926 in Brookline, but in 2016 came to the pier. So can you tell us about that? Tell us about Wulf's and why you're now on the pier when you weren't before.
There's a lot of layers to the business. There's a lot of camaraderie, and I came together with Wulf's. I've known the figurehead of Wulf's, Richie, for a long period of time. I've been down here roughly 20 years, and I still think of myself as a newbie. But I had a previous company called George's Bank. I remember meeting Jared. Jared and I are boys. We used to run around in vans together trying to ice fish on a Thursday afternoon at like Regis College. Remember that when you got stuck? Like everything, even the plan, Chris Basile, he was my neighbor. I used to go to Chris Basile's fish market in Maynard when I was 15 at like 2 a.m. on holidays, and like get bullied around and like get your ass in gear, like let's go. It's a hard industry. But I started working in the restaurant industry. I worked with Jasper White, who's a premier, figurehead seafood chef. I've met Julia Child. I've been around the horn. I teach at Boston University seminar in culinary arts. I've been doing that for about 15 years. But the community of everything really meshes and ties together. And despite competition, we all have a degree of camaraderie because this work is really hard. I went from doing what I was doing for Jasper, starting my own offloading business on a small scale, and coming to a head where I needed to essentially, I don't know if this is sanctioned or not, but piss or get off the pot and decide whether or not we were going to come together with, Richie and Wulf's and that history and brand, and bring this to the forefront to, service restaurants, which is what we're really heavy on, and which is what's made this whole situation with the pandemic extremely difficult. But we're persevering, we're pivoting, we've, moved towards different avenues, but that's the progression. And here we are. Larry Dorr, I look at him as a mentor, boss Sword and Tuna. Like I love Larry. I worked next to him for, 6 years, 6, 7 years. I love him. All these people that you see, and this isn't scripted, but I look at Larry, I look at Scola, I look at Chris, I look at Tori. They're all people that we've been shuffling around with for decades, and it's really important to me. I'm not out to get rich. I try to take care of my family. I live in Jamaica Plain, but the bottom line is the community of this industry is what keeps us going. It's a positive, resilient, hardworking community. And that's what I love about it. And, at this point, I think everyone around us is just trying to survive this ordeal and come out of the other end. And we're forced to make snap decisions, be decisive, and make moves. And, this industry is really a prime example of, make the decision, you'll find out if you were right 2, 3, 4 days later, but you got to make the decisions quick because it's go, 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 go. Yeah. And there's an allure to that, or, a curse, one or the other.
You learn quickly, definitely. So yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. And it's actually, it's a good segue to Jared. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Jared, is Reds, when you landed on the scene, when you started Reds in 2008, it was decidedly with this fisherman-first approach. And so if you can tell us kind of what that means, but also how that's evolved as the company has grown. And then what all roles the company is actually playing now, since you're doing a lot. Oops, I'm wondering, did we lose Jared? Let me see, or Jared, you may be on mute.
Bottom left-hand corner.
Let's see.
Unmute.
There we go, great.
Hi, thanks, Laurie. Thanks, Max, Andrew, Laurie. Thanks. A lot of people here. Thank you for checking us out. Yeah, so I would second what Max said. And what Andrew said. There's definitely an allure to the fish beer, right? There's, as Andrew pointed out, there's probably more modern options available, probably more efficient for running an operation. But there's something about coming down to the old historic Boston Fish Pier, over a century old, in downtown Boston, and showing up here every morning. And being around all these hardworking people, we're really impressive people. It's the fishermen, which I'll talk about, but the other people down here, as Max, Tori, just really impressive people, from the CEOs to the fish cutters, are people that I respect a lot and proud to work with. So started Reds Best in 2008. I think the supply chain, in a neat way, is everybody sort of overlaps a bit. I think what's unique about Reds Best is our focus on working with boats and unloading boats. We built some cool technology that makes us really good at handling a lot of small transactions. So what I find really compelling and neat about our local seafood scene, beyond what Andrew said, that it's not all doom and gloom like you read about in a lot of the what's published, is that our local oceans are really resilient. Our fish stocks are really healthy. And what's really cool to me, both as a member of the industry and just as, an American, is that as in the United States, we harvest this massive natural resource with tons and tons and tons of small, independent mom and pop businesses, which is just a really cool thing. So Reds Best came on the scene. It's a really well-established industry, really, impressive companies all around. We thought we could use technology to get really good at sort of gathering up all the fish from all the small boats. So we built some software, makes us really efficient at doing that. We have trucks. We have other facilities, satellite facilities in Chatham and New Bedford and Martha's Vineyard. So we're kind of running around meeting boats at all these remote locations, you probably see our trucks when you're on vacation. We're gathering up the fish as the fish come in, aggregating it all at the fish pier, and then shipping this fish all over the world. As somebody pointed out, you know, it's amazing the demand for New England fish all over the world, right? We're shipping pallets of fish to sushi distributors in Los Angeles and San Francisco, Tokyo, Japan, every major city in the country every day. But, you know, we're also trying to keep as much local as possible, right? Our number one obligation is to the fishermen, right? We need to move their fish to people who are willing to pay. But like, what's in my heart is to be a platform to connect our community of consumers with our community of producers. So we opened up a retail market in the Boston Public Market 5 years ago. We've been in a lot of public markets, and really something I always wanted to do, but we really doubled down isn't even the word for it, but we went all in on channels, building channels so consumers can directly access this fish that we're unloading off of boats. And I can admit COVID is what, you know, I always dreamed of doing it. COVID, you know, kind of crisis is really what catalyzed that movement. So we have a lot of cool things going on with that too. So yeah, really just sort of proud to be the young guy on the fish pier. We're making a lot of investments. We did a big project that Andrew was supportive of in 2015, and we're gearing up now to do another one now. So
Awesome.
trudging along.
Very cool. We're going to come back to the Boston Public Market point in just a second when we talk to Chris. Or I have a question for you related to that, Chris. But tell us a little bit about the Boston Smoked Fish Company and what opportunity you saw, because you're a different kind of player in the industry.
Absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. It's great to be here. The opportunity we saw is we're actually the only smoked fish company in the 617 area code, which is pretty surprising. This is a world-renowned seafood center. And that's kind of, that was the initial draw. My business partner, Matt, has a great talent for cooking. He comes from the Midwest where smoked fish is a big part of the food culture. I think he was shocked that that wasn't the case here. We were both lawyers before this. Don't hold us, hold that against us. But we weren't loving what we were doing and just saw this opportunity. And I thought he had fantastic recipes. And so what we initially did, we started in 2013. The fact that we're the only smoked fish company in the area it's a great advantage, but it's also a challenge. You kind of have to create the market from scratch and introduce this very well-known type of seafood preparation to a community, which is a little bit staid and traditional. So what we did really was we built a shed in Sudbury initially. And we focused, we focused on organic growth. We started with the farmers markets, and we just grew incrementally from there. The opportunity in 2015 to come to the pier was a dream come true. That was really exciting. We kept reaching out to Andrew and whoever we could to see if there was an opening, and finally there was. It's true, we don't have, as Andrew alluded to this earlier, there's a wonderful mix of businesses. And we're secondary processors. We're a value add product. We don't have to be on the pier, in a sort of an immediate, sense of, in terms of our operation. But there really is quite a romance to working there. I think it's fantastic for morale. I think it just makes people very happy to go to work. But the other thing is, on a practical level, rubbing shoulders with these guys, with all these folks in the industry, it's immeasurably beneficial. I see that everyone really is around us, mentors, from Jared and Max and Larry Dorr over at Boston's Sword and Tuna. So it's interesting. It sounds a little bit like a line, but it's true. We're customers of all and competitors of none. I mean, Jared might sell me some fish and then I'll smoke it. So it works out okay. The other thing is we're actually able to take our trimmings, in the case of Deb at Polka Dog, who spoke earlier on the video, and we actually sell that back to her, which she turns into fish skins. So there's a really nice integration, and there's a really nice way in which we sort of complete the chain of commerce a little bit from some of the businesses that are, it's an area that's traditionally more focused on primary processors and fish cutters.
Very interesting. Yeah, and kind of talking about the ecosystem, I also was thrilled to see your collaboration with Row 34 on this smoked steelhead trout pate. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with the neighborhood, Row 34 is an excellent restaurant within the seaport. So just a couple of blocks away from you. So can you speak also, and really all of you all, to your thoughts on how the Fish Pier sits within this rapidly changing neighborhood of the seaport that now has everything from commercial seafood companies to Reebok to Autodesk to Vertex, and what it means to kind of be within that mix of and the synergies that might come from that.
Are we talking about the construction that's happened?
Well, certainly construction is part of it, but you know,
this area has blown up. It's exciting in the context of the current social climate. You know, it's intriguing to see what's going to happen. There's a lot of things that are beyond my realm of thought that I can even comprehend. How's that building going to get filled up? How's that building going to get filled up? But, you know, we were here when there were dirty, rotten timbers down to the left, you know, and an old ice house that wasn't working that got torn down. So it's an exciting area to be a part of. And there's an exponential amount of potential that's going to come to fruition once we get through this bumpy path, you know, in my opinion. So we're all scrambling to get a little piece of the act, you know. Again, life's too short. Like I just want to see this area remain on a forward moving course and remain healthy and you know, provide the opportunity to have all the people that I've grown up with down here the ability to maintain that history and that lifestyle and that quality of life and the ability to make, you know, make you know, money for their families and their futures. You know, that's a big part of my mentality right now. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I took myself on mute. I didn't know if I
no, that's great. Yeah. And I think picking up on some of those themes, you know, obviously the idea of resilience has been part and parcel of the seafood industry long before 2020. But I do wonder if you all could speak to what you've been focused on as the pandemic has unfolded, and also maybe some of the lessons or the epiphanies that you've had from what you've pivoted towards in these last couple of months. And Jared, maybe you want to start with because I know you did some things, and I'll mention I sent some halibut and scallops and haddock to my dad in Virginia, and he loved it. So I'm thrilled that you're now allowing me to do that.
Yes. And like I said, that was always my dream, right? It's like, take this thing that I love and have such an admiration for and share it with the world, right? So yeah, thanks, Laurie. I'm psyched about that. You know, Max can attest to this. Especially the seafood industry in the United States, the fresh fish industry is very, very, very reliant on restaurants. Max, you might know the exact stat, but it's something like 70% of seafood is consumed at restaurants and 30% at home. And in fact, in Europe, I believe it's the exact opposite. It's 70-80% at home and 20-30% at restaurants. So I would imagine Max agreed. I never saw, you know, I knew that. It was always like, I saw that.
Dude, we never had the time.
Right.
We never had the time to make that move. Now we do, you know?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's part of that, right? The whole world got put on pause and we had nothing better to do than do what we probably wanted to do or should have done. You know, but that 70-30 split didn't really affect us, right? Like guys like Max are really good at getting this fish to restaurants. So the supply chain kept moving. The fishermen kept going fishing and we kept unloading boats and the restaurants kept buying it. And then like, you know, like you evaluate all the risks to your business. You know, we were also really big with colleges and universities, right? no college never made the list of potential threats to my business. And, you know, the second week of March, Harvard shut down, you know, and all of a sudden there was no college, right? And then a week later, there's no restaurants. And it was a wake up call, right? So it just is a gut punch to, right, Max? I mean, it was just a gut punch, right? Like everything came to a screeching halt. And I think, you know, the big takeaways from, you know, so it was a pretty intense time. I mean, I get like emotional just even like talking about it from a bird's eye view right now. But the big takeaways for me, you know, I really took that time to try to look at the whole supply chain completely objectively, right? Be really even like self-critical on like, where am I being wasteful? When I talk about waste, I'm not talking about like waste, like am I throwing away stuff? I'm talking about like wasteful behavior is wasteful, right? Because it's not a zero-sum game, right? We can all do better. And right, it's not like, all right, well, if my business needs to make more profit than the fisherman makes less. In fact, like I really believed and still believe like there's ways we can all do better, including the consumer. So the big takeaways for me were one, you know, use technology, use modern innovation that's available. And Max done a great job of this too, of just like, you know, like disintermediate supply chains, right? And there's a lot of ways we can do that. You can go on our website and check that out. But the biggest realization that I had is that I believe that American consumers have way too high an emphasis, but put too much pressure on having fresh fish. And I think that the behavior of rushing and scrambling to get people fresh fish is actually very wasteful. And you can also check out our website for more on this, but like the technology available for freezing fish and the access that Red's Best and other companies have to the best, freshest fish of the world, you combine those and you can eliminate a lot of really unnecessary waste in the supply chain that was coming from us scrambling to get people fresh fish. I really believe that people need to open up their minds to eating frozen fish. You know, I can ship you a 10-pound box of all different varieties of local fish. The quality will blow your mind. And like, even if you can afford to buy 1 pound of fresh fish from me and have it FedEx in a big styrofoam box, like I don't want to do that with my life, right? And also, I don't want to be losing sleep at night trying to figure out how I'm going to thread the needle with this fresh fish. What I want to do is support the best fishermen in the world who are responsibly harvesting the ocean. I want to unload their boats, do a really, really good job of processing that, packaging that, and freezing that using the best modern technology on the market, and then, you know, freeze that and get it to you in a sustainable way, right? I want to ship you a 10-pound box of fish and have a lower carbon footprint. And I just feel really good about that. So that's where we're at.
It's super interesting because part of in order to do that and do it well, you have to have a relationship with the customer. And it's been really interesting to watch all of your companies on social media over the last year to see what kind of content you're putting out there, and how, you know, your seafood companies, but you're also educating us a lot about the industry along the way, about what the local species are that can be excellent to eat, that might not be the first go-to. And Chris, I'd point out that we're looking at Billy the bluefish.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that was fun.
And both and Chris, just like Jared, Boston Smoked Fish is also in the Boston public market. So my guess is that was a very strategic decision.
Very much so.
Wow.
Love being there next to Jared at the BPM. What a wonderful community. Obviously, it's taking a huge hit right now because of COVID. But that was a thrill, an absolute thrill. And it was, it made us feel good that we put so much work into selling directly to customers at farmers markets. Initially, it was just Matt and myself out there trying to hit all the ones we could, whether it was in Lexington or Arlington or SOA or wherever. And that way the community kind of knew us. The managers, when they were putting their list together, they we were lucky enough for them to think of us to be included. So that's a dream. Actually, yeah, that Billy's standing there, Billy the Bluefish, that's his name. He's standing outside the Boston Public Market, actually, in that picture. I don't know. I didn't know, Laurie, if you wanted me to speak to some of the challenges real quick and how we
it'd be great.
Business model. It was terrifying back in March and April. There was an initial stoppage of ordering from the big supermarkets. That caused us to scramble like we did, when we were terrified about even making our first sale back in 2013. And we said, okay, well, what's the opportunity here? And obviously, of course, it's the direct to consumer model. So we reached out. We were very fortunate to, and I think social media probably has helped a lot with that. The Boston Public Market has helped us be more of a known brand with some of the local places. Like there's a company called What's Good that they said, okay, people can't go to farmers markets. They'll deliver the farmers markets goods to the people. There's a wonderful CSA, Walden Meats. We gave them a cold call and they said, sure, we know your stuff. We love your Instagram. We're very fortunate and that's the value of Instagram. It's not just window dressing. This is not something Matt and I did well in the early days. We were sort of old fashioned and we just focused on making a great product and are doing our best to do so, and sales, direct sales. And every once in a while we said, oh, we should update this. And so I think we've caught up finally and put more emphasis, but that's helped us with the local delivery businesses in that model. That actually helped us recover quite a bit. It was being able to work with places like that. It's not a new idea. Peapod's been around for a long time, but it's certainly a growing trend.
Yeah. And in terms of just being able to connect, literally have that relationship with the consumer. And Max, that makes me think of something that I think, Wulf's has long had a very, a great reputation, but now to see that one of your fish cutters over the last 2 years has, I think, 80,000 followers on Instagram as he.
Yeah. I taught him how to cut fish. I used to cut that much fish. That's fine. If you put me next to him, we want to cut fish, I'll throw down. It's not an ego thing. Like I'm not looking, we're doing the e-commerce thing. We've pivoted as well. My whole front with this industry and my background, having worked with numerous, Michelin star chefs, having the chops, having cooked in Italy and done what I've done in my career is really an attention to detail. And, with our front, that's what we're putting forward. We've essentially not laid off any employees since this started. We haven't laid off a one. And we're just buttoning it down to try to get through and be standing on the end of this whole thing. But, the history of Wulf's, I came into that in the middle ground because I was born in 1971. Not 1926. Yeah. But Alan, I know Alan, Richie's a baller and he's been around for a while. But all said, everyone's just trying to make moves. And what Jared's talking about in terms of streamlining and getting to the consumer and calming people down and saying, listen, the technology that we have in our hands right now can enable you to buy fish at reasonable pricing, that's shelf stable, that is as good as fresh, if not better, is, a huge deal. And despite the fact that we live in the Northeast and we feel like we're a seafood culture, the United States really isn't an entire seafood culture. Give someone a fish head to make a stock, 8 out of 10 people are going to go, ew, what's that? So it's about education. It's about getting creative. And that's a big part of what I've kind of been embracing over these last, it seems like 2 years, but 10 months, I don't know, something like that. Trying to use our platform to, encourage people to be a little more confident with working with seemingly esoteric items, but they're actually more regional, seasonal items that people don't see in fish markets. That's a whole big deal. Global hunger could be cured if people ate whiting, and loved mackerel and loved hake and loved monkfish. It could be done. Overfishing isn't necessarily the big bullet point. It's under consumption, you know, and, you know, the incentive for fishermen to go out and catch these species that are not in fact overfished, it all comes down to demand and the consumer embracing that product from a seasonal standpoint. And that's the biggest deal, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was an interesting question that came in from the audience, which we kind of touched upon, but I'll just add a little bit more to it. Julian Rocco asked, with the decrease in restaurant traffic, was demand impacted equally across all species, or were certain products hit harder than others? So
I'd say, you know, me, again, I don't offload crazy like Jared. I offload a little bit. You know, I'm not value add like Chris so much, but, you know, it's more of an across the board phenomenon, whereas certain items, you know, Jared knows what I'm talking about. Like, you know, if the weather sucks, you know, certain items are going to go boom and people are going to be like, wow, it's that much money. You know, that's the ebb and flow of what we deal with. But generally speaking, I think the incentive for fishermen to fish is, you know, in their mind, you know, there's less incentive to do certain things at certain times because of lack of demand. You know, I don't know if Jared would agree or not, but, you know, there's a whole lot of species out there. Some are worth this much, some are worth this much in regular times, but at this point, there's a tipping point for, is it worth for me to get in my boat and put gas in it and go out fishing? You know, that's.
So maybe another question related to that is, have you been able to track that there actually are certain species like monkfish that people are now starting to cook at home more than they were before? Is that still wishful thinking?
It's kind of a secret.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest challenge we have as an industry is opening up consumers' eyes to the abundance and diversity, really, of abundant species we have here. That's number one, right? Eat monkfish, eat skate, bluefish, whiting, mackerel, redfish, but eat cod too. Eat cod, right? Eat swordfish, eat the stuff that you're familiar with. Also, that's the biggest challenge. We're on a more macro level, as Max pointed out. And to answer your question, Julian, at first, the high-end stuff plummeted, right? So lobsters were really high priced, right? Crashed. We saw stability, especially with some of the export stuff. Like the staple items were stable. As the summer went on, the high-ticket items have climbed, right? I mean, from our view, which is really just like sitting in the middle of supply and demand, like there is high consumer demand for high-end meals. My opinion, I attribute that to two things. One, the reality is a lot of Americans got a lot of cash, got stimulus money, and Americans spend cash on lottery tickets and crab legs. Sorry. But
an interesting theory. Yeah.
Lottery ticket sales
right.
are through. The less cynical thing, though, is actually, I think what it is that, like, and this is how I'm behaving with my wife, right? We're not going to, I love Jeremy Sewell. I'll give a second plug to Row 34 in Island Creek, right? But like, we're not going to Row 34 on a Friday and getting a babysitter with a couple friends. So we are going to I'm actually addicted to the sushi program at Red's Best, kind of plug, but hey, I'm spending the money at Red's, I'm buying it, even though I own the company. Like, I'm going to spend $100 on some super fancy bluefin toro and maybe crab legs and lobster and have that on a Friday night because I'm not going out to eat. So I attribute it to that equally. So that's gone through the roof. The last thing I'll say, though, is it takes global demand to consume the supply in New England. So France shut down a month ago and the skate price went down. California shut down a couple of weeks ago and our live scallop market's going down, right? So it's all these kind of getting hit by every angle on both up and down.
Yes. Yeah.
Laurie,
Yeah.
Laurie, I wanted to return to your question earlier about the fish pier. Someone mentioned, character. And I think, from Massport's point of view, and my point of view personally, the fish pier represents, I think one of the last authentic, fantastic resources we have in South Boston. And I mean, you can hear the passion these guys are talking about their businesses. So it's authentic in the nature of the business that happens there, the people who work there, the architecture. A lot of people don't realize it probably, but the asset itself and the uses are protected by some layers of state regulations, designated port areas and Chapter 91 specifically. But beyond that, I mean, the property today just plays, I think, such a key role for the scale businesses I mentioned earlier. One thing that we, consistent with what we've been talking about around education, pre-COVID, we were pretty far along with a really cool kind of pop-up venue at the head of the pier that would have really announced the pier with a more public presence at Northern Avenue and been a place where these guys could have sold seafood, a la sort of a public market style venue. We also were setting it up with a bunch of interpretive information and an opportunity for any organization to really come down, Boston Harbor Now, others, and run workshops and educational sessions about the industry, about the history of the area, sea level rise, whatever it might be. We're hopeful that we can get this installation put up. It's built and in storage right now, mothballed until the time when we can afford to deploy it. But we really think that the pier, to the question you asked earlier about the evolving district, can really be a noteworthy sort of icon for this industry in this neighborhood with so many more people that are kind of hungering for information about what's going on, what they can eat, where they can buy it, where, all these issues that we're talking about. So, we're looking forward to that when that can roll out and sort of happen in partnership with the guys on the call here and the other businesses as well. I will say, I think one of the challenges in the face of development that has to be balanced carefully is as I mentioned earlier, the transportation and access challenge. And for those that are unaware, there's a whole network of truck routes that serve South Boston. Some of them are dedicated to trucks only, others are for general purpose traffic as well. But we believe, and those must be preserved as part of a balanced transportation system. Because as you've heard these guys talk about getting their product out to the marketplace, be it globally, locally, or regionally, is essential.
Yeah, and it really is interesting because I'm going to say in normal times there's a lot more pedestrian activity. There's a lot more cyclists in the seaport now. There's growing interest in the pier. We just had a question come in about, can the public access the pier and buy fish on the fish pier, which is, I think, a pretty common question. Andrew, you want to hit that real quick?
Yeah, so we don't, it's germane for this group in particular. We haven't endorsed ever sort of formal harbor walk on the pier because it's a working pier, and frankly, it's a dangerous place in the middle of the day when there's trucking and forklifts and there's a lot going on. These guys are hustling product around, and so we discourage that. I think we've been working with the guys to sell seafood. We're open to that. I think Jared's doing, a couple other folks are doing it. I mean, it has to be, at this point, it's a small scale operation. And certainly we and they hope it can grow. I think over time, we'll have to think about how to accommodate that. Like we couldn't have a flood of people driving their cars down the pier to pick up product. It would just gum up the works, right? But could something happen in the parking lots certain days of the week?
Yeah.
I mean, Max was saying earlier he gets up at 2 a.m. So you can imagine most of his work's happening and he's done, by mid-afternoon. So the pier actually, we think about, is there sort of a timing relationship where it becomes a more public place where you could have some of that happening, when people are getting off work and they want to buy their dinner, and it wouldn't conflict with the processing operations that are going on. So those are the kind of conversations that we have had off and on and want to have more with the tenants on the pier, and frankly, others in the neighborhood too, because I think to support these kind of ideas, we probably want to bring some others into this discussion also.
Yeah, and speaking of some of the other companies within the cluster, a question came in about that their business is not on the fish pier, but on the waterfront, such as John Nagel, which were originally on the fish pier, and how do they fit into Massport's plan? So
the pattern has tended to be businesses have migrated, started on the pier, had a history on the pier, and moved off the pier. Boston Sword, Cape Cod, a couple of examples, Great Eastern. And so because they needed more space, they need them for trucking. I think our game plan for the tenants that we can support at the Massport Marine Terminal is to work to get those modern facilities developed out there and create an opportunity for businesses that want to grow into that space to be able to do that in this cluster. Nagel happens to be a tenant of the city. They're not on Massport property, but certainly a key player in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. And just what you were describing about preserving the infrastructure, the truck routes, the investment in the airport, Conley Terminal, all of those resources serve the broader industry, and therefore are really critical to all of the companies, both on and off the pier.
Absolutely.
Quite a symphony of activity.
Yeah.
We have just a few more minutes left, and I have a couple rapid fire questions for you. So first is, all of you, do you fish on your days off?
Yes.
When we can, but mostly in the summer. But one of the funny questions we get, Laurie, is we're spending this whole entire day smoking fish. People, you'd be surprised how many people ask us if we also catch the fish. Like, Matt and I are out there.
Did you catch that fish smoking right now? Yeah.
I used to, piss vinegar and giant tunas, 800 blah blah. I've done that. Jared and I have gone way back. I've gotten soft, and now I'm Mr. I like going to streams and fly fishing for trout. That's my jam.
I'll pump Max's tires. He's a very, very good fisherman.
Okay.
I fish a lot. Max is a good fisherman.
Thank you.
And so then my next question is, where is your favorite place on the Boston Harbor to fish or for other activities?
Anywhere. You can't spot jump and like give up spots. You just can't. Jared, don't do it. Just can't.
It'd have to kill you.
12 foot of water, right time of year, like do your jam, you'll catch huge fish. That's it.
Yes. And I want to encourage people, like, go out, spend time in the ocean. Our local oceans are clean and just abundant with fish. Like, this should really be something that we celebrate as a community. It's really positive human story that we don't overfish. We responsibly harvest this massive natural resource. We have clean oceans. As these guys put, we're on 100% occupied working waterfront in downtown Boston, and you can't find any trash. It's really amazing and something we should all celebrate. So,
the harbor's beautiful. The harbor's
beautiful.
With the endeavors that I did in the past on Spectacle Island and I think it was George's with Jasper's crew, we did weddings out there. Like, it's beautiful country, and it's basically a fishing golf course. Boston Harbor. Not that I necessarily want more people on the water. That's why I fly for streams. But it's a great resource, and it's a beautiful area. It really is. And you wouldn't think it, but god damn, it's great.
You've coined a tagline, Max. You've coined a tagline, the fishing golf course.
I want to give Massport a shout out to Andrew Hargens, especially, has been really instrumental in helping us grow and preserving the fish pier for all the businesses. It's, I think, 100% occupied, Andrew, right? That's real testament to what Andrew has done with his leadership, at least since I've been around. So,
yeah, thanks a lot, Jared.
I second that.
Yeah, it's been a good partnership. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
I wish I knew
Lauren
you better.
Lauren Gable's on the line, who's been our eyes and ears on the pier working with these guys.
Yeah, I saw her on there too. Lauren
She's
as
on
well.
the call, so Lauren's done a terrific job.
Big thanks to Lauren as well.
Yeah, and then perhaps our last question, there may be one more. What should we be cooking for our holiday or preparing for our holiday meals?
You shouldn't be cooking anything, just ordering fit, finished. We've done the hard work for you, all right? It's done. Excellent.
Classic gumbo.
I think Americans are missing out on and not cooking enough calamari at home. That's been my what I've been thinking about lately. But you got to be flexible in what you eat. I can't reiterate that enough. Like it's so random what people catch. Like Max and I fish. The reason, if we knew exactly what we were going to catch every time we went out, we wouldn't be obsessed with fishing. It's the same thing even for the commercial guys. It's like, it's random what we bring in. Keep an open mind to what you consume, and you'll get a better price, better quality, and you'll just really have an
when I was a little kid, people looked at me like I had 3 heads when I was filleting skate wings.
Yeah.
At 10, people didn't eat skate back, how old am I, 50? So 40 years ago? People didn't eat skate back then, and I'd fry them up and like watch cartoons on a Sunday and be like, wow, this is the best thing ever. Everything is seasonal. A big thing with what we're doing is not just trying to sell fish, but trying to educate our consumers with collaborations with our chefs and videos and demonstrations and cooking. I'm the de facto chef demo guy now, because I used to cook. We're really trying to educate people and calm people down. Fish doesn't mean your house is going to smell fishy. Fish doesn't mean, I can only eat cod and haddock. It should be one of those things where, you go to the grocery store and you see this really funky, spiky, bright colored fruit, and you're like, wow, I want to eat that. You don't go to the fish market and see this really interesting striated, multi-textured piece of fish that nothing about and say, I want to eat that. Most people get scared of that. We gotta change that mentality and embrace local ingredients, because they're all there. They're really all there. And we need to get behind it, so.
I think that's a great message to end on. And I want to thank all of y'all so much for making the time. We know you've been awake since very early this morning, most of you. So thank you for making the time, and to our audience as well. Thank you for joining us this evening and for submitting your questions. And just want to please join us for the next one. Please stay in conversation about the Fish Pier and our amazing industry that we have here in Boston. Get involved. Join the Friends of the Boston Harborwalk. And just want to wish everyone a safe and happy holidays. So
thank you, Laurie.
Thanks, Laurie.